When actress Evan Rachel Wood first began to speak about it, she didn't name names. Some speculated, but she was careful, calling him only a significant other or my abuser. Wood, who for years has spoken publicly about surviving sexual, physical and emotional abuse, on Monday revealed a missing detail central to her story. The name of my abuser is Brian Warner, also known to the world as Marilyn Manson, Wood wrote in an Instagram post. On Monday night, Manson refuted Wood's accusation, writing that my intimate relationships have always been entirely consensual. Wood's post may not have been a shock. There has long been speculation that Manson was the man of whom she spoke, but experts say it was a remarkable and rare disclosure given that most survivors never report abuse, let alone name their perpetrators. Experts say fear, shame, and threats of retaliation are tremendously silencing for survivors. Naming the person who sexually assaulted you for many survivors is a way of reclaiming their voice and power, said Laura Palumbo, Communications Director at the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. It's also a way for them as the person who has held on to this experience to fully acknowledge their reality and truth. They are no longer keeping the secret of the person who abused them. 1 in 6 women has been the victim of rape or attempted rape, according to the Rape Abuse Incest National Network, and most never file a formal report. About 1 in 4 women have experienced sexual violence, physical violence or stalking by an intimate partner, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Many, like Wood, suffer in silence for years before opening up. Victims of sexual violence and emotional abuse are at higher risk for developing mental health disorders, including depression and PTSD. Rape survivors are also more likely to attempt suicide. Wood said she struggled with depression, addiction, agoraphobia, night terrors, and tried to kill herself. Daisy Coleman's death, a tragedy among sexual assault survivors study, for 1 in 16 U.S. women, first sexual intercourse experience was rape. Imagine how difficult and psychologically damaging it is to feel like one of the most important things that ever happened to you, something that has shaped who you are as a person and your life in so many ways. One of the most important details about it, you're not allowed to say out loud, said Nicole Bedra, an expert in sexual violence whose research focuses on campus rape. Disclosing takes time for many survivors, experts say. Many fear they won't be believed, or that in speaking about the abuse they may be re-traumatized. Sometimes the survivor is overwhelmed with shame or believes the abuse was somehow their fault. The decision to come forward in this bold way can reflect where this survivor is on their healing journey and the support system or resources available to them now, Palumbo said. FKA Twigs, details physical, emotional abuse allegations against Shia LaBeouf. Analysis, domestic violence victim, blaming gets in the way of Me Too moment. Domestic violence, debunking myths. Wood, now 33, was 19 and Manson 38 when they went public with their relationship. She didn't begin to speak about the alleged abuse for years. For many survivors who have spoken openly about their experience of sexual assault and abuse but never named the person who abused them, it can feel as though they are protecting them, Palumbo said. Experts say it's normal for survivors to over time share information they had not been comfortable sharing in the past. Naming a perpetrator can be dangerous for a survivor, psychologically and practically. It can also make people less sympathetic to their experience of abuse. Experts say when a victim names their perpetrator, they're usually seen as vindictive or vengeful, when in fact they're often trying to warn others or to explain their reasons for feeling unsafe. In our society, we think of women's sexual trauma as sort of equal, or maybe perhaps even less important than protecting men's reputations, Bedra said. But victims name their perpetrators because they want to warn other people or because they're looking for refuge from them. They want people to know, this person is still in my workplace. This person is still in my classroom or my friend group. I don't want to come to your birthday party because you invited my rapist. Wood said she was finally using Manson's name so she could expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that have enabled him, before he ruins any more lives. Even if most people always assumed Wood was speaking about Manson, her disclosure is not without risk. Many survivors face threats and attacks for naming their alleged perpetrators, and many men who claim they have been falsely accused have sued their accusers for publicly speaking out. leveraging their power to keep the survivor silent can include legal threats and battles over defamation, slander and libel, Bloomberg said. When Wood named Manson, she said she was done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail. Survivors risk lives, reputations to stand up to powerful man-woman behind French Me Too, fined for defaming man she accused of harassment in 2018. Wood shared her experience with sexual and domestic violence with the House Judiciary Committee, telling them I accepted my powerlessness and felt I deserved it somehow. Experts say naming a perpetrator is one way that a survivor can take back some of that power and reclaim their voice in a culture that frequently fails to hold abusers accountable. The vast majority of sexual perpetrators escape prison time. Out of every 1,000 rapes, 995 perpetrators will never be incarcerated, according to an analysis of Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation data conducted by the Rape, Abuse Incest National Network, RAIN. Healing from sexual trauma differs for every survivor, experts say. Not every person who has been abused will need or want to speak their perpetrator's name. But in an ideal world, they say, society would respond to survivors who name their perpetrators with kindness and compassion, rather than suspicion and blame. Survivors deserve support, whether they name their perpetrators or not, Bedra said. Naming a perpetrator is a hard thing to do. Someone who decides to do it may need more support than ever, at a time when they're probably likely to get less. You may also be interested in, if you are a survivor of sexual assault, RAIN offers support through the National Sexual Assault Hotline, 800-656.hopeonline.rain.org. If you or someone you know may be struggling with suicidal thoughts, you can call the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273, talk 8255, any time of day or night, or chat online. Crisis Text Line provides free, 24/7, confidential support when you dial 741,741.